morning, good morning, good morning. You're in Belonging in Business. I am Mandy Jane, or people know me as MJ. I'm going to talk to you for a couple of minutes, maybe about 25 actually. I've got some guests in the studio and they're going to come up after that. So please just buckle down, get some piece of paper, maybe a pen. I think that, to be honest, this subject of resilience, of keeping going, of keeping on, is exactly what we should be doing on Saturday, the 6th of April. Why? Well, in business, it's a new financial year, guys. So if you don't know it, you've got to get organised. We've got 4 quarters ahead of us, and I hope you are planned. If you don't have a 4-quarter plan, come and see me, to be honest, because if you're in business and you've not got that, I've got a question for you. How do you keep going? Because I don't think that you keep going just by arbitrarily wandering around the world. I think the only way that I've been able to keep going in the world is by strategic and definitely planned action. Why? Well, because I'm disabled. So belonging in business takes a little bit of a different slant in that it includes everybody, I'm afraid. It does not just include those select few, the homogenized middle. I'm certainly not the homogenized middle. I do have pronouns of she and her. However, I do suggest that I have more than one intersectionality. I'm sure you can see that my glasses are shaded. I don't particularly identify with the prerequisites of gender, although I am definitely female born. I am a teacher, a specialist teacher, a SEND-CO. That's a special educational needs and disability coordinator. I'm psychotherapeutically trained, and I am further training as a social worker. Did I want to do any of that? Nah, to be honest, I didn't. Because I'll tell you what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a mum. That's what I wanted to be. From the age of 13, I didn't know that I was neurodivergent, but I was ready to have a family, probably because that had been the rhetoric I'd been fed. I came from a gypsy background. Family was a big thing. People were a big thing, and having people was a big thing, and making lots of other people, probably because we all died very early because of the health inequalities that we experienced. So I think that I was encouraged to make people. I was excited about making people, and so I did. But in order to fund those people who came, all of my children, I didn't have many, I had 3. But in order to fund them, I had to do some work. Unfortunately, I didn't have the support, financial support of other people, and so I had to do it for myself. Now, I could have just gone and got a job. Well, I could have done, except that I'm disabled. So it's not easy. In fact, people really didn't quite. I'm a bit like, what do they say? Marmite. That's right. I'm like Marmite. People love me, or actually, they really want me to just go away. So if you are here and you are listening, we have some chat. Tell me where you are in the comments. Let us know that you are watching. If you're not watching now, let us know that you're watching later. And if you don't want to do any of that, and that happens too, then just pop an email to me, connect with me on one of the platforms that you can see me on now. We are on Facebook. We are on, where are we on? We're on Twitch. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We are on StreamYard. So I think we're pretty much everywhere we need to be right now. So yeah, we're talking about keeping on, keeping on. I am, as I said, training to be a social worker. And today, well, yesterday, it was halfway through my 2nd year placement. That means I am bang, smack, in the middle. The middle feels a bit difficult because I feel like I can't do it. I feel like I can't do it because I've not done it yet. I don't know what the second half looks like, and the first half I've just kept my head down. I've planned it to precision, and now I'm here. I've got the second half to carry out. It's like I've done the work, and now I've got to orchestrate how all of the energy that I've put into the first half plays out in the second half, because completing, finishing, getting to the goal, well, that's the only purpose in any of the activity, right? So I need to put the work in, but I also need to complete on all of that effort that I've put in order that I can show the fruits of my labour. So that has led me to the idea of, how do I keep going? How do I keep going in my life when I can't access anything? And that sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it, Mandy Jane? But this week, my van broke I have a wheelchair lift on the van. I'm a wheelchair user. I have multiple disabilities, and I have anyway. So I have a wheelchair, and my van broke again. It's a wheelchair accessible vehicle with a ramp at the back. It's a Mercedes Sprinter. I can't get any other make. It needs fixing by a specialist. When it is to be fixed, that's fine, except that in order to get a car from Motability, I have to use a company called Proximo, and they only have 26 cars nationwide that are wheelchair accessible. That means that now, because I've complained, they've had to go to another provider to bring a wheelchair accessible vehicle to me, because they can't get me one through Motability, even though that's the purpose. When I hire a car from Motability and then I haven't got it because it's broken, to get another one is kind of important when I'm training to be a social worker and I have a business. And I have to have a business because I can't get the fees to be a social worker if I've already got a degree. And I do have a degree, otherwise I wouldn't be able to be what I am. So it's impossible. I am tied up from every which way I go. And then when I contact the only operator in Cardiff, which is Visu, they won't let me book via their app, and they won't let me book via the phone. And I've been like this for 3 years. To go to work is very difficult. So the idea of belonging in business, it's not even on the agenda yet. Nobody thinks that we belong in business. Nobody thinks that we belong anywhere. Everybody tolerates us. And sometimes we have allies. That has to change. And I believe that belonging in business, when keeping going, is about being exactly who I am. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't have anything else. I didn't arrive with anything else, and I'm not going to leave with anything else. And everything I get is pretend. It's pretending that we can make it up. In that what I do today is what I decided to do a year and a half ago, which I decided to be in Wales, training to be a social worker, having decided that I don't get included, and I haven't included myself. So I'm going to include myself, and I am including myself, and not very many people like it, including me. So for anyone that's finding this process uncomfortable, me too. And for anybody who finds my meetings with the directors of said companies uncomfortable, me too. If anybody feels that I wanted to do this, or I enjoy screaming into the void, or I prefer to explain why it is that I've been excluded, you're wrong. And if you think that this is my raison d'etre, if you believe this is my reason for living, if you think that I want to keep telling people the same old rhetoric time and time again, I don't. What I want people to do is, well, think on and keep going. But the only way to keep going is to keep going being you. Because if I'm not, and I don't turn up in my chair, if I'm not, and I don't turn up speaking the way I am now, as I am, who I am, where I am, and everyone that knows me who I am, I am. If I don't do that, then it'll slip. That mask will slip. And I can't be who I am everywhere I go. And that's uncomfortable. It makes me stressed. And for those that wish to understand why I'm now healthier, it's a lot of reasons, but one of them is not pretending. Because pretending actually makes you ill. It's all right, all this we've made up about society and the way that we have societal norms and what is acceptable and how we shouldn't swear here or do this there or, fart. I said fart last week in a van when I got stuck and my wheelchair lift failed. It was the only F word I could remember in the entire of the dictionary in front of lots of people who were helping me out. Because on my birthday, I had a TIA. And my language acquisition and expression has been challenged. What I found out afterwards, because I'd never studied it before, was the way to overcome the effects of a TIA is practice. Practice. How do I fix this? Keep doing it. What? Yep. Practice. Just practice. Just keep doing it. If you forget the word, just keep looking for it. If you can't describe something, like I couldn't describe mechanic earlier in this week, so I said, hello, I need to find a, one of those human that goes under a what's it that's in a car, that when it lifts up that you go under, and it's the thing that makes the thing go, it's what you do, and it makes brum brum, and that, and he does a, with the bang bang, a mechanic. You just got to keep on keeping on. No matter how hard it is, and no matter what you face, and no matter who you are or how you present, well, do you know what? Suck it to them. But you are who you are. I was born this way. I don't really get a choice to be anybody else. So I'm not going to. And I'm going to keep shouting loud and proud about the fact that if I want to get a bus, a train, a plane, down the road, over the field, on the bridge, I will. Or the boat, or the hover bike, which won't be long. I need a hover bike. It's very important. If anybody is creating hover bikes, I'd be grateful if they could let me know, because I require one. Elon, what are you doing? Elon Musk. I can't say Mr. Musk. It's not a name I could say without laughing, because it just sounds so funny to me. Sorry. I'm neurodivergent as well. I didn't know that till my children were diagnosed. As I said, I wanted to have babies. Lots of them. Plenty of them, so they didn't die. Sorry. That's the gypsy in me, right? So I come from a health inequality background. I've had to fight my way through. I've clearly explained that as somebody in a wheelchair, I can't get many places. And I have a business. I don't want to go on about it because I don't need to. I have a business helping people go to work. I have a business helping people go to work because we've got to, because this government are about to kill us all through their neglect. And I'm not going to allow everybody to be neglected without helping some people to find a way not to be neglected. I think that's my job as a trainee social worker, to challenge oppression and speak up when things are not equitable. Well, they're not. Not any of it. Not travel, not education. Education, equitable. Disabled students allowance, it's a car crash. Anybody that wants to make comment with me or email me or tell me or say otherwise, come and talk to me. Because non-medical helpers have been removed. Huh? That's the equivalent of a support worker through access to work. They've just been removed. I only have mine because I need one, or I can't get in the building because there isn't a fob court door that means I can get in, and all the social workers are upstairs because there is no lift. And the double doors that make me go to the kitchen mean that I can't get in. This is my placement that I'm paying for. £9,000 I'm paying to Student Finance England for a placement that isn't accessible with a non-medical helper that doesn't exist and isn't funded anymore. Because we're widening participation, right? No, we're not. And the government know what they're doing. And they've planned it, just like I've planned this placement. They planned it years ago and they're executing it now, and nobody's listening and nobody cares and nobody's coming. Well, I can live my life and I'll be able to say that I was out there and proud and I was explaining what I was experiencing. And later on, when I'm dead, people will be able to say, she spoke about what happened everywhere. And there's the footage. So all of my life, I've been excluded in one way or another. And all of my life, I've been finding ways to belong. Belong to me. Truly belong to me. Because the disassociated parts of myself are the result of adverse childhood experiences and the contributing and really, absolutely, overwhelming trauma has meant that I've had to learn my way through connection. I've had to learn my way. I've had to take the disparate parts of myself and put them back together and create some kind of whole that's palatable and honest. I have to be me because it's the only way I can be healthy. I have to be true or I'm unwell. I become inflamed. I become anxious. My body goes into fight or flight. My cortisol levels raise. I crave sugar and other addictive properties. And then I get expanded and then my organs fail. And that's what's happening to most people. I hear more and more in my job about children with diabetes type 2, type 1, 9, 10, 8, 7. Never had diabetes in the family, no history of it. And they're busy having pumps installed and taking insulin. Children. Nobody's born bad. Nobody is born with a craving to make them expand. So in order for us to belong, first of all, I think we need to start getting honest and authentic and out loud. And we need to believe that we deserve to be belonging everywhere, in business, in education, in home life, in relationships. Relationships is a massive subject, particularly in the disabled world. And it's one I'm going to tackle much later on. But for today, I want to bring some guests on. We're going to be asking some questions about how they access the world and whether I'm just screaming into the void because I'm some sort of whinger that has an experience that's different to everybody else. And maybe that's true. Maybe. Today, if you want to know how I keep going, and if you want to know how to keep on keeping on, and if you think that keeping going is the only way, well, this stuff never ends. So how can I say there's ever an end? Even though I'm aware I've got to put all the work I've done in the first half of this placement and carry it out to produce the goods in the second half. And I'm doing that, believe me. And I'm probably, in terms of most people's life, time, what we got now, people that I've got 102, lady of 102 died last week. Just cuddling me the week before. 102. So I'm halfway through again my life. Actually a bit more because I'm 53. So if I get to 106, then I'm halfway through. So I'm halfway through my placement. I'm halfway through my years. And I'm probably halfway through understanding what the hell I'm doing here in this space. But I think what I'm doing is I'm exploring and explaining whilst I'm exploring how the hell I get included in this godforsaken, ridiculous world that doesn't even manage to get me a taxi. I can't book a taxi in Cardiff for a WAV. Now, come on. It's the capital city. So I'm in communication with Vizu. And they are talking. And it's about time. And I am in communication with Proximo. And they have hired me a wheelchair accessible vehicle from another wheelchair accessible vehicle hire company, which is great because we all meet capacity, and at that point maybe we need to collaborate. In fact, there is no other way. We have to collaborate. Collaboration is the only way. However, we have to understand that through collaboration they will attempt to homogenize us, and so we have to also fight against that in a juxtaposition, I'm afraid. That means that we can't just agree to everything just because it gives us a coin. In business, we can't. We have to have some values, some standards, and some idea for the end of this game, which is way beyond I stay on this earth, believe me. What I'm doing here today and what my business Accessibility Partners is aiming to do, and what inclusion and the people here are in inclusion, and one of them directs it. You never know. Won't be able to convince the other one too soon. Inclusion and AP together are seeking to make sure that everybody's got a voice at the table. And those that haven't got one yet, well, they're in inclusion, so they're with us anyway, right? So they're noodled because we all belong in business. And I'm bringing us all. I don't care what people think about it, because things have to change, and they have to change very quickly, and they have to change from the bottom up and the top down. All right, we have to make the mess in the middle our mess in the middle. We have to make it our agenda, because it's everybody's agenda. So don't tell me it isn't. So whether you're at the top and you can't talk to the bottom, or whether you're at the bottom and you don't know how to talk to the top, or whether you're in the middle and you don't know what the hell's going on. I shouldn't have said that. You don't know what the heck is going on. You really have to accept that we have to belong together. That's the first thing. The first one, beyond the trains and the taxis, that's the first one we have to belong. So once you get that from here to here, come and tell me, because then you can do some work. Because whatever work you do before you do that is superfluous. That means it's pointless. That means don't bother. Well, no. Practice is progress, right? So do all that pretending if you want for a while. But when it drops from here to here, and you actually believe that we all belong, well, then the magic happens. So now I've told you the secret to the universe and how to have happiness and how to foster resilience and how to keep on keeping on, because the end is a greater product than you. Well, then it should just be easy. Because I think once your values are right, once you realise that it doesn't matter whether we can talk, and one of my clients can't anymore, they have aphasia, terrified me. Then I had a TIA and was grateful the only thing I couldn't find was F. Luckily, I said fart. There were other F words, I've already said one, that I might have said. I already have. There we are. They said it at the time. Could have been worse. Well, it just was. So, given that I am not perfect, because I'm me and I'm being authentic and I'm not doing anything else now because it makes me ill, I'm going to bring my guests on because I think that I may have fulfilled the objective, which was to say that the only way to keep on keeping on is to help everyone belong. Because if we're not together, well, I'm afraid that nobody's going to be happy. And I want everyone to be happy. Genuinely want them to be happy. I am working towards an integrated society, right? Because it's all right being a teacher or a therapist or a social worker. But I'll be honest, they don't understand each other very much. And I think that's because they don't feel they belong together. And they do. They genuinely do. I've learned as a neuro social worker. So that's what I want to be when I grow up. Because I want to move into virtual reality. Because most of my people can't get out because there's no taxis and they can't leave the house because they haven't got a wheelchair or it's broken. Or access to work have told them they're not relevant and they can't have a wheelchair because they're not important enough, they don't belong in business. So I'm going to bring virtual reality to disabled people. It's going to be my thesis study. Because I'm afraid that's where we're all going, sat on the settee doing doodly poop. But hopefully, because your mirror neurons are excessive, if you're neurodivergent, and we have to do that in a sitting position, you can do it all anyway. It's like when you exercise in virtual reality. When you exercise, you think you are, and your body thinks you are. So I'm going to connect the to the in a neurological way, and also in a way that tells you that we have to get together. I'm going to bring the guests on now because I think I've babbled long enough. I have a beautiful gentleman called Chris and another called James. And I've been screaming into the void for 25 minutes, but I'm going to mute my mic and I'm going to ask, how do you circumnavigate? How do you manage your intersectionalities, right? Whatever they are, and you can say who you are. In fact, say who you are. Say what your issues are. Everybody wants to know what our disabilities are. We might as well just tell them, first of all. There's a bit like a badge in it. So what are you and what have you got? And how did you get it? And why? And was it your fault? Sorry. That's not quite what they're thinking, but you know what I mean. Might as well say who we are and what we are. And then, have you had any issues accessing these things that I'm banging on about? If you have, what have they been? And how do you think that's impact on your ability to work, which business is kind of what it's all about? Hopefully that made sense, gentlemen. Good morning. Shall we go to Chris first? Or shall we go to James first? James, let's go to... Oh, I don't mind. I'll tell you what. Who's good? Just two gentlemen, you say. I told you they were gentlemen. There you go. Morning, darling. Nobody, that'll be.
Morning.
I love that. For you,
We're trying to be after you, sir. No, after you, sir. Yes, we've been too sure or something. Yeah, brilliant. As ever, brilliant introduction. Morning, everybody. I'm Chris. I'm the director of inclusion. Also work alongside MJ at Accessibility Partners. Yeah, I was thinking, listening to what MJ was saying. It's basically like if anybody knows Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the answer to life, universe, and everything is 42, and it's our job to work out what 42 means, and that's what we're trying to do. We don't really answer; we're just working out to get there. Yeah, so I I was born with, well, born badly, you know, but basically was what happened, and I got a brachial plexus muscular injury to my left arm and a right side hematoma, which is a fancy way of saying they broke the nerves and gave me slight brain damage. And yeah, to get into business, to get into work was, despite the fact that I think I'm quite capable of doing things, was just basically nobody opened the door, nobody allowed me to, you know, they sort of wanted me to go on, came out of A levels with enough qualifications to go into university, so I wasn't sure at the time was quite for me. And then all they could offer me was going back to somebody like Remploy. Now I've got no problem with Remploy, but having just gone through, you know, wherever we were, 13 years of education and come out having passed all my exams, I didn't think I really needed to go into somewhere to teach me how to read and write when I got to English A levels. So in the intervening gap, the mess in the middle, as our friend Marie would call it, I didn't, you know, I didn't get into the world of work. I didn't get into the world of business because, despite trying, nobody, you know, you need someone to say yes. So it's very easy for people to say no. And so I helped look after family, and I wasn't unhappy, but it was just one, you know, thing that wasn't missing until I met MJ through a long, complicated bereavement and a sort of very circuitous route. And met MJ, who was the first one who actually said yes. And now, as I say, I'm director of inclusion and work alongside it as disability partners. And I'm full square behind MJ as we strive to change the world, and which is what we're doing. And screaming into the void. As if MJ's screaming into the void, well, she's got lots of people standing next to her screaming at the same time. So yeah. So that's me.
I just want to. I have to do a clubhouse right. For 3 years, I have been, as most people will know, and if you don't, go and find it because there's a back catalogue that I can only imagine how many words have been spoken in that back catalogue. But you alluded there, Chris, to a very pertinent moment when I smashed the hand cycle marathon last August, and Marie had an interview with Pete and said, you know, what we deal with is a mess in the middle. And that was coined essentially from lifespan planning, which is that as we go through each of our stages, and I'm in the middle age, I'm at that latter end of middle age, which is where people have a crisis. And they have a crisis of identity. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about the identity that is stripped from us as disabled people. That identity is stripped from us at birth, where we're seen as differently able or disabled. And, you know, I will still argue until the end of my days that at university level, when I was doing my master's and I was doing the disability studies, although that tutor wanted me to call myself a disabled person because society hadn't yet finished disabling me, were his words. I asked him the question, when do we disarm? Who disarms first? Who makes the choice to get into the mess in the middle and find out how the hell we resolve it, rather than just bitch into each other about how horrendous it is? And how about I don't just stand up? I'm not being funny back. We have some fantastic activist groups in the UK, but the problem with it for me personally is that when I see people roaring in the street with banners, I get a little bit discombobulated. It unsettles me. Now I'm aware that there's a purpose to it, and it's literally to do that. But I just wonder whether there are more productive ways to disrupt the situation. Maybe we could be doing something whilst we're disrupting the situation. Maybe we could be earning whilst we were disrupting the situation. Maybe we could be on a lived experience panel explaining to people why it's not been as easy as all that. Maybe screaming into the void is the way to take the power back and explain the narrative So just like every other intersectionality in history that has been alienated, ostracized, and removed, cancelled, exited, the more history there is, then the greater the recompense for those when equality is served. Now I feel like I'm screaming into the void. But what I feel like is that you are, well, for me, when I met you, Chris, I didn't understand why the services hadn't seen you or valued you or heard you or recognised your wants, wishes, or seen that you have a political bent, or understood that you have a propensity to orchestrate without even having to, just by who you are, because you're so honest and upfront and who you are all the time. And for me, that was refreshing, and it meant that actually bringing you on board to something, you see, that heart and mind things, right? People can come along with as many bloody degrees as they want. They can come along with as much reading, learning as they like. They can come along with the most capacity to speak this stuff. And believe me, I see them and I hear them, and they don't touch me, and I'll tell you for why. Because it isn't from here, it's here. But finding someone for whom it's already here, well, the rest of the guff that they tell you is the stuff that you need that they won't let you have access to. Actually, it's all free, and it can come out of anybody else's mouth. So they can't hold it behind money anymore, because people like me won't have it. So as a result, then you get to hear the rest of it. But you've already done that. So you've done the easy bit when inclusion's delivered. It's like the last come first, says the Bible. There's a reason that's stated, not because that the Bible's the only story. There's a reason that's stated. It's because by being the least, we become the most through the processes that it puts us through. And I had no idea. I know I'm naive, but I had no idea until I had to process my own mess in the middle. So as I, at this time in my life, in the lifespan plan, people at the end of middle age, and obviously these are the learnings I'm having at the moment, are just assessing whether they've lived a life that they deem has been successful. So have they, in the first half of the game, put in the work that means that the fruit comes in the second? And the crisis is when they haven't. So it's shame. I am not ashamed of me, of you, of everything we are, of anything that we do, because it all has to be in the mess in the middle in order that we can understand the point, which is just to work out who we are and how to make ourselves comfortable in a life, and one that only we deem is worth living, because the rest of everybody disappears at the end. There's nobody left. So there's only your opinion that matters, and I think it's beautiful that your opinion's always mattered anyway. And now you get to play in all of the parks that you haven't been allowed in until now, because you did the work in the first half. So guess what now? Even before your half is up, you get to watch the fruit of your labour. That, for me, is a better way around than having to do all that work in the first half and then work out who you are in the second, because now you can enjoy it. And most people say that they never enjoy it when they get it. And I'll tell you why. It's because they ain't got this right first. So that's why the rest come first. And that's why you come first. And that's why you're Director of Inclusion. Because you've done the bloody work, man. Before you can. All right? I hope that makes sense. James, another man that's done the work. Bloody hell, have you done the work? Hey.
Thank you, MJ. Chris, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I've been taking loads of notes. And how do I manage in the workplace? Well, you can't see it now, it's invisible, but a couple of weeks ago I had a little slip, because I train every day. I had a little slip on my relaxation day in the gym, and broke my back. But my recovery is so much better now. And how do I work in the workplace? Well, I don't, because of this injury, but I wasn't in the workplace before the injury, and as a mental health first aider that factory realised was because of their Toyota-based management systems. They had seen the skills that I had got, plus the high quality level of production, some of the biggest figures that they'd ever produced, especially on the brown bottle line. They were massive production, because I have strong ethics and values in producing the best I can to the best of my ability. And if I do make a mistake, I want to learn from that and learn fast. But I also need support so that I can learn through those processes. And I was ostracized and not appreciated, whereas some of the other factories I've worked in over my careers, I worked 18 years from school in one factory, which ended up becoming a supermarket once it had got knocked down. And those wonderful people in the community of Lee, I have connections with loads of people there. And those connections are brilliant, because through some of those wonderful people, that inspired me to get into volunteering. I help at my local food bank, and I have been helping at the upcycling place, Gearing Up in Wigan. But currently, because of my injuries, it's not. I need to work on the recovery, which I'm doing wonderfully, and I'm actually at a better level than what my physios and doctors expected, and that's because of my values of how I work with my system. I know what my limits and capabilities are, and then I pause and reassess. And I do this through journaling and the wonderful people that I have in inclusion. That last weekend, I had a coffee break with them in Cardiff, and it was such a beautiful setting. But I worked all day serving coffee on a voluntary basis. So I kept well hydrated. And strangely enough, the next morning, and I was up 3 hours later than I would normally be on a Friday night, because I'm not a party animal these days. I realise at 49, my partying days have got to be slightly different from from the good old days when I was in the radiator factory, because they did know how to party in Lee, and they had all the kebab shops, all of the ale houses, and all of the things that I look back at now and realise that they were good at the time, but they don't really work for me now, because I have worked stoically on my health. It is the foundation of who I am, and I know that this C4, C5 is just as small as Mum would say, a walk in the park. So I'm shortly going to have a walk in the park, and keep moving forward, and that's what I feel, this connection. I mean, I think it's almost like a chakra connection that I have with the inclusion team. We move so beautifully. I was at a very dark place a couple of years ago when I was made unemployed, and it was because I did not accept the bullying that I was receiving. It was epically toxic, and I just don't understand why people need to have them values. I understand that is what they're carrying, but my bag of tools is completely different from that, and I've got some nice cycling tools for the weekend, so I'm looking forward to a few more back restorations whilst I'm sat in the car.
So am I, James. We've got a late arrival. I'm so excited. I'm gonna bring Tony onto the stage. I'd like to ask Tony the same question, really, but I think he's probably going to share it through the art of poetry. I've listened to a poem this morning that he shared yesterday in a very important group that he has. He's part of. Because Tony is including himself, right? Just like I've been, and he is. He's somebody that I've met through another group. Fantastic guy. I'm going to bring him on stage. He's part of inclusion. And I'd like him to share a poem and share really how he feels that maybe his intersectionality has affected his engagement in work, education, training, whatever, life, transport, all of the things we've talked about. I hope he's heard me this morning. I'm going to add him to the stage. Tony, I'm sorry I didn't see you down there. I'm going to bring you up now. Hey, good morning.
Hi, chap.
How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
Please, would you do me the pleasure of saying who you are, explaining, I mean, if you're willing, to share something that you feel might be pertinent from this morning's, Screaming into the Void.
I'm Tony. Sorry, I've got an echo here.
It's me, it's my fault. Let me do it.
I'm Tony. I'm a poet. My name under which I do art and poetry is Tony de Moncey, which is from my French heritage on my mother's side. I have various intersectionalities in which I'm impaired. I'm part of a couple of marginalised communities, and I'm also a CSA survivor as one of my intersectionalities, and that's a very important part of my life because it's something that I stand against and I stand with others, and it's a community I'm part of, as is the disabled community and a few others.
And you're also a poet, aren't you? And I've got to say, over the years since I died and then came back because I was dead, and then anyway, as we know, I was very ill in hospital, and afterwards you became my friend, and I was actually in the hospital bed at that point, at home, with no lift and only a commode and some very great pixies that will run around after me. But your poetry kept me going. You sharing on Zoom, you sharing yourself authentically, you being who you know you are, because we all know who we are. You being who you are and knowing who you are and stating who you are as authentically as you do gave me the strength to be who I am. So I want to say thank you for that. And I wondered if there's anything that you had in your battalion of words that go straight from here to here for me today. I'd be really grateful to you.
You mentioned MJ, could you cut your mic? Thanks. You mentioned a poem that I shared with you earlier this morning. So I will share that if that's okay. It's called Yearning for Wisdom. I may once have been considered as being among the wise, may have been considered wise myself, but as has been said, wisdom is for the wise, and I am profoundly not wise. I rail and resist against insurmountable odds, against insurmountable loss. My writing's a screen upon which my soundless scream of loss and torment is projected in a semi-coherent and societally acceptable fashion. My writings, my prose and poetry are my screams, my howling into the void, my loss, sorrow, horror, fear and rage, while I yearn for peace and joy and love and compassion to enter into my life again. I also have another poem which I wrote a few years ago, which I think characterizes what a lot of us do, whether we know it or not, or whether we admit it or not. It's called I Protest. I protest with every breath that I take. Every movement, every thought is protest. Though mostly confined to written modes, the petition, the poem in solidarity, or the spoken and unspoken railings at an unkind and pernicious fate, at unkind and pernicious folk. I have a steady audience, the voices I rail at, those manifestations of the abusers, and there is also the audience of my peers, my fellow travellers, survivors all, The halt, the lame, the cloven-minded, the abused, those afflicted with creative fervour, those who see or hear into other realms, realms that some of us may scoff at. Most of all, though, I protest injustice, suffering, hatred, and bigotry. Life for me is protest, is an act of protest, saying, see this, see me, I go on.
You're muted, MJ.
Oh, bloody Nora. That's why virtual reality has to be part of my agenda, because I want to be able to move and make things happen. You move and make things happen. And I don't just mean when your mouth moves. You, Tony, are intrinsically connected. We are intrinsically connected. And I believe that it's that connection that everybody's forgotten. And our only purpose to be here is to make those expressions, which of course is exactly what you've just said, as we fight against our disconnection from one another, which is the fallacy, right? I think personally, other people might not believe this, but I think you've got it cracked. A bit like Chris, I think we've got an army of people waiting just to get the fruit of their labour. Like, if the first half has been this bad and we've had to do this much work and it's had to be that scary and we've had to take that much on, then the second half has got to be easier. That's what I think. I am really grateful for you sharing those. Really grateful. And I would really encourage you to allow me to hear some more, because I love them, and also for you to share some more, because I honestly believe, I mean, not today perhaps, but in coming weeks, if you are around and you're available and you're willing to pop on when we're here, because we're always here, it will be great for you to come along and share whatever it is in the week that's been going on, or what your expression is, or one of those millions of poems. I know there's not millions, but there's certainly hundreds that are in your computer, from your mind, right? I've just got to say that I can't wait for you to be discovered. I mean, I realise you've discovered yourself, but I can't wait for the world to realise that you're there. Your poetry is important, and your voice is imperative, and it's why everything's happened. But I realise that's no consolation. So thank you. Anything else that anybody wants to say, or should we close it there? Go on.
Thank you.
You are welcome, Chris. Would you like to say anything before we go?
I just want to echo what. So can you mute me? Yeah, I just want to echo what you said about Tony's poetry and Tony's very existence. He's intrinsically part of what we do, and he's intrinsically part of me being here as well as you are. So yeah, Tony's poetry needs to be heard by as wide an audience as possible, because it really does. If it's screaming into the void, it's screaming into the void beautifully.
It is, isn't it? And I just want to say that for those that don't know what this is, there's a link along the bottom. That link would allow people like Tony to start a business. If Tony was able to be the person that was given the minimum income guarantee, which is just shy of £7,000, and then I was to give him, through my team, the 12 sessions that allow him to really set up the access to work process, meaning that they come eventually in the first year, and they're not ripping it away then at the end of the first year because he didn't make the minimum income guarantee. The problem is that Tony has had to, by means of his extensive, as you said, impairments. That was a word he used, not me, and I'll use his language. Impairments has prevented him over recent years of being able to work. Now, I personally think, when you just heard what you can hear that he's produced, I think that, to be honest, there are people that have done less that have received more in recompense for their efforts. So it's my opinion that as he's been reduced to the state of most of us, that of welfare benefits acquisition, that actually this kind of fund is necessary now. I didn't like the telethons of the 80s, and nobody wants us to be a feel-good thing that people do, but frankly, we haven't got a choice. We're feeding people in food banks right now. So if we don't start creating disabled entrepreneurs, then I'm afraid I'm not sure where we're going. Tony's an example of somebody that truly deserves to receive such an award, actually, to be honest, whether or not he wanted it. But those sorts of people are going to be applying, they're going to be encouraged to, because I don't think the welfare benefits state is going to stay around as it is. Just saying. I think they're ripping it asunder, and I think we've got to play a different game. I think we need to play a better game. I think the game doesn't need to be about donating money to poor disabled people to make a turn of their coin, but I do think we have to make a political statement about the fact that that's the state of play, and that we are at food banks, and that actually universal credit is unacceptable, and that rent has gone through the bloody sky roof and nobody can afford to rent, and those on benefits are being squeezed out of the private rental market and they're being put in slums. So we're going back to where we were, but this is a fight to say that actually they can sod off. Some of us are going to get out kicking and screaming out of the void as we scream into it, because we're not insignificant. We are important. Our voice is important and our words are important, but so is our experience, and it's going to be spoken, and it's going to be spoken loud and proud, and nobody's going to stop it, unfortunately for you. So I would suggest that that you go and donate, join in, share, make it your raison d'etre to allow people like Christian and Tony and me and James, and all those people in your family that you know have never been included, and you know who they are and you know how they're treated. So how about it goes from here to here, and you start actually acting in the way that you talk about, and start being honest when you're talking about inclusion with yourself first and foremost, and then with everybody else. And let's talk about it, and talk about the challenges that you're feeling, about the ways that you feel, about us coming on and saying these things to you, around you, and about you without you, because that's what I've been experiencing all of my life. The experience of being spoken about me without me, about what I've done and about what I'm capable of doing. So I'm going to say now that I think you're all capable, we're all capable of inclusion. I do. I think when we really examine how we feel and we start to unpack all of those unconscious biases we have about Romanies, Gypsies, me, about people that are born with brain damage, about those people that have a mental health problem or have come from child sexual abuse or other such intersectionalities. Maybe it's because they're black. It could be because they're gay. Maybe they're trans. Maybe you don't understand the gender agenda. Doesn't matter. Inclusion comes from here. My heart. You know it here, but you send it here. So that's what we're doing here. And I'd like you to donate, I'd like you to share, and I'd like you to join in. I'd like you to share this recording, this broadcast, share Tony's words, share Christian's experience, and share your understanding of Visu taxis, and of Proximo, and of any other service that professes to provide services for us, about us, without asking for our feedback often. So have a great day. It has been Belonging in Business. I've been Mandy Jane. You've been with Chris and Tony and James, who's just popped off the stage. And we're not going anywhere except here on a Saturday at 8 o'clock for around an hour. I'm going to go and do some coaching now. I absolutely love you all, and I'm really grateful to my guests for coming. If you want to know how to keep on keeping on, just, well, come here, because you should just go there to join in. That's inclusion. Include me. Inclusion.me. You can't forget that, can you? Or if you want to go to work, or you never thought you could, or you don't know how, and you think you can't do it on your own, and to be honest, I wouldn't advise it, but you can if you like, because really, it's free at point of go and get it. But if you think you'd like a hand, and you'd like to put to use some of the government funding that allows you to learn this very, very intricate and difficult and challenging process, if you'd like the confidence to challenge the state, then go there. Because honestly, it's fantastic and it's amazing what you can make. I've been MJ. I run Accessibility Partners. You can see it in the corner. It's a company that unlocks your potential And that's what it does. It does what it says on the tin, and so do I. So it's been absolutely fantastic you being here, and I'm going to say goodbye. Have a good week. See you next Saturday, unless you're on Clubhouse, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday, because some of us get out of bed. See you there if you're going to be. Bye.